It's to see the world as it is, not through an ideological lens. I make the point in the book that a good idea is a good idea, whether it comes from the left or the right, that people have to understand how the world works. And my point about economics is, I don't know, I grew up in New York City. I don't know where you grew up, but in New York City, students did not take a course in economics, but they took a course in trigonometry. And I have a healthy respect for math, but come on, economics and finance is much more important to people's futures and what people do and how they can function as good citizens than trigonometry. So in any event, I took the courses in economics in college, as did a good number of college students. And what I was confronted by, and what most college students are confronted by, is a whole array of graphs and formulas and jargon. And they don't understand how the world works any better than they did before they went in. Mathematics is important to economics to tease out precision with regard to 2 or 3 factors, but to understand those relationships, the relationship between taxing something and work and the basic relationships, you don't need math. You just need some fundamental knowledge and good common sense and the patience to look at the world and see how it really functions. And so the book is geared to help people do that. 100 years ago, if you wanted to listen to music, you had to go to a music hall. That was it. There were no phonographs, there was no internet, there was no Spotify, there was no Pandora. You had to go to a music hall, which meant that any city of any size had to have at least one music hall with singers, with ushers, with ticket takers, with all sorts of people working there. If you want to hear music now, you just go on the web and probably hear the music from the same 5 or 10 superstars that everyone else is hearing music from. So the internet technology has enabled more of a winner-take-all economy. Retail, if you sold clothing in New York and wanted to sell it in San Francisco, I remember as a kid, the expensive long-distance phone calls. You had to figure out how to rent space in San Francisco with the different rules. You had to find someone you could trust there. Now Jeff Bezos through Amazon could sell clothing in the most obscure village in Indonesia with the cost-free platform of the internet. So it's become easier for the superstars, and Jeff Bezos is unequivocally a great retailer. Taylor Swift is unequivocally a great singer, but it's enabled them to capture a share of the market that before the internet, no one could have captured, no matter how great a singer was in the 1800s. All they could sell out to is one venue at one time. And so we're in more of a winner-take-all economy because of the cost-free platform of the internet. Economists call it economies of scale. So that's one phenomenon. That's just happening as a result of technology. And the other is taxation. During Dwight Eisenhower's presidency, Dwight Eisenhower was a Republican. Do you know what the top marginal tax rate was? Yeah. Democrat Barack Obama, it was 39.6%. And Obama was called a socialist. No, I'm not saying which tax rate is right. I'm saying this is my fundamental point, my most important point. There's no formula that's going to tell you which of those two is right. It's a question of values. It's a question of judgment. And to the extent people cede those decisions to quote unquote experts or economists or politicians, they may very well get an outcome they don't like. It's a value judgment. It's not like physics where you just plug the numbers in and you come up with an answer. It's a value judgment, whether it should be 91% or 39.6%. And if people don't get involved in those decisions, again, the outcome can be very different from what they would have wanted. I try to stay away from politics. I try to provide basic information to enable people to make their own value judgments, but I always remind them that it's mostly a value judgment. There's no right answer about a tax rate. That's all about what your gut sense tells you is a fair allocation of society's resources or reallocation of society's resources. In connection with rent control or rent stabilization, I teach about that at NYU, and I always tell the class, you could have multiple classes on this subject. It's so complicated. And that in and of itself is a bad thing because it just throws sand in the gears of the economy. To the extent landlords have to hire lawyers to figure this all out and deal with this phenomenal bureaucracy, That just adds to the cost of providing housing in New York City. And guess who winds up paying for that added cost? So I'm possibly going out on a political limb here. I think the government should be circumspect. How's that? This is not far out on a political limb here, before interfering in the private market, because it gets really expensive for people to comply. And the fact is that the market price is the market price for a reason. So the extent you interfere with it, you get all sorts of distortions. I know Zoran Mandami, who is running for mayor in New York City, has talked about establishing city-run supermarkets, which would have devastated my father's income and my ability to have an economically sufficient childhood. So I don't know what that would achieve. $37 trillion is a number that's so big. It's like Carl Sagan's billions and billions. You cannot get your head around it. So what I do in Understandable Economics is I divide that number by the number of Americans. And it's about $87,000 per American. And that's a number everyone can get their head around. Is $87,000 too high a debt per American? And my answer to that is you have to think it through. If someone took an $87,000 debt to go to medical school, or an $87,000 debt to start a promising business, or an $87,000 debt to buy a house, would you call them irresponsible? Probably not. But if they took an $87,000 debt to go on some extravagant vacation they couldn't afford, or pay for some kind of substance abuse, yeah, that's really irresponsible. So it comes down to what you do with the debt. And that's why people have to look at what the government is doing. Are they just trying to push tax obligations down the road? In which case, yeah, the debt is terrible. Or are they using the money wisely to build schools, highways, to really improve the efficiency of the American economy and the productivity of Americans? That's what they have to look at. And that's their job, not mine. My job is just to point out that that's what they need to be looking at.